Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and in today's episode, you're going to get 3 chilling ways that you can get the benefits of cold exercise. Now, it's no secret that I'm a fan of the cold. In the episode 5 Little Known Ways to Burn Fat and Build Muscle, I discuss how I use something called cold thermogenesis for things like fat loss and hormone balance. And then in another Get Fit Guy episode called More Proof That Ice Can Help You Get Fit, I talk about 2 studies that prove the effectiveness of cold thermogenesis, icing, and cold water immersion for everything from muscle soreness to exercise-induced muscle damage to relieving inflammation. Now, in that same episode, I mentioned that I keep my own home at about 60 to 65 degrees. I take a couple icy cold showers a day. I use something called a fat-burning ice vest, a cool fat burner vest during the summer, and I implement lots of other body cooling strategies that I'm going to give you links to in the show notes to this episode. Just go to quickanddirtytips.com and look for episode 304. And finally, as if that weren't enough to make you think I'm obsessed with cold things, I also dispel the myth that icing a muscle is bad for you in my episode called Are Cold Showers and Baths Really Bad for You? But this month, I discovered 3 recent articles on cold exposure, articles that you may want to pay close attention to if you want to maximize the benefits of exercise by using the cold. So let's dive into this chilling body of research, shall we? Number 1 is to get cold before your next workout. Now, in this first study, entitled Running Performance in the Heat is Improved by Similar Magnitude with Pre-Exercise Cold Water Immersion and Mid-Exercise Facial Water Spray, you learn about why you may want to take a cold shower before your next hard workout or run. Now, in this study, researchers compared the effects of pre-cooling before exercise and mid-exercise cooling on running time trial performance and the physiological response to running. In this case, trained male runners completed a total of 3 5-kilometer running time trials on a non-motorized treadmill in relatively hot conditions, a nice balmy temperature of 91.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, each trial included pre-cooling with cold water immersion, which is basically sitting in a cold bath, mid-exercise cooling with a cold facial water spray, and then a control group that, poor fellas, received no cooling at all. Researchers monitored temperature, cardiorespiratory, muscular activation, and how hard the runners perceived the exercise to be, along with blood lactic acid levels. Well, running time was significantly faster following cold water immersion and also when getting sprayed with cold water during exercise. Both these cooling strategies significantly reduced body temperature and increased the strength of muscle activation. Even the gold standard of body temperature measurement during exercise, rectal, yes, rectal, was significantly lowered by a pre-cooling bath both pre-exercise and during the entire run, and also produced a lower sweat rate. So even if you don't have a big icy bath to soak in, try this. Rather than waiting until after your next workout or hard run to shower, just jump in a cold shower beforehand. Now, study number 2 was called Exercising in the Cold Doesn't Make You Sick. Now, sure, we all remember our mothers telling us to put on our coats before going outside so we don't get the sniffles, but based on the latest research, exercising in the cold doesn't make you sick and actually produces even more benefits compared to not exercising in the cold. Now, in this latest study, researchers examined the impact of anaerobic hard intense training on salivary lymphocytes, which are a white blood cell component of your immune system, and compared this immune system response to a cool versus a regular environment. Now, 9 lightly clothed volunteers did speed, agility, and quickness sessions in both warm and cool temperatures, the warm being about 66 degrees and the cool being about 50 degrees. They did things like 40-meter sprints, T-tests, box jumping drills, shuttle runs, etc. And then the researchers collected saliva samples to check the white blood cell response after exercise and after 2 hours of recovering from that exercise. What did they find? Well, they found white blood cell count increased post-exercise, followed by a decrease below baseline values after a couple hours of recovery. And this happened for both groups. But compared to the baseline measurements, changes in the immune system were of a smaller magnitude following exercise in the cool environment, meaning that exercise in the cold didn't stress the immune system, and it stressed it less than exercising in regular temperatures, and actually caused small fluctuations in immune cells that could make people more resilient to getting sick. And by the way, this phenomenon of something you think is bad for you actually being good for you in small doses is called hormesis. Pretty cool stuff, hey? Finally, there is a study called Cold Water Might Enhance Your Recovery. You heard right. Cold water just might enhance your recovery from exercise. But it turns out there are responders and non-responders to this technique. And in this latest study, researchers investigated whether cold water immersion following a very hard training session could enhance recovery in elite Olympic weightlifters. But rather than studying the entire group of weightlifters, they took into account each athlete's individual response to cold water immersion. The entire German male Olympic weightlifting national team participated in the study, and each went through 2 high-intensity training periods that consisted of 5 training sessions, either followed by cold water immersion or passive non-cold recovery. The researchers measured things like barbell speed and a variety of blood parameters related to recovery, and subjects' rating of general fatigue and recovery. It turns out that physical performance at 2 different polling intensities, 85% and 90%, didn't differ that much with cold water immersion post-exercise. There was a significant decline in ratings of overall recovery and significantly higher ratings of overall stress over time in all the groups who were doing these 5 very hard training sessions, but no difference between the cold versus the non-cold. Testosterone and cortisol, 2 other important recovery measurements, also didn't change significantly. So cold water immersion at first glance does not seem to be an effective tool to enhance recovery, at least in these elite Olympic weightlifters over a 3-day intensive training period with 5 training sessions over those 3 days. But here's the kicker. Some athletes did experience significant improvements in performance and testosterone to cortisol ratios when using cold water immersion after their workouts during this 3-day period, indicating that there can be both responders and non-responders to icing and cold after workout. So my recommendation is to use yourself as an N=1 and use any recovery measuring techniques, and I'll link to some of my favorites in the show notes for this episode, to assess your individualized response to cold therapy and icing post-workout. For even more practical tips about how and when to use things like cold thermogenesis, cold showers, icing muscles, and more, then go to quickanddirtytips.com and check out the links in this episode number 304. And if you have questions, comments, or feedback, join the conversation over at facebook.com/getfitguy, and I'll be sure to point you in the right direction over there. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.